Okay. Could you please explain what is scope in JavaScript and what's the difference between block scope and content scope?
Okay, scope is the access in which a variable has the access. Say for example, if I take a function example, so only in that function, let's say if a function is name, and then I will declare a variable one and name, let name equal to Neeraj. And if I console log it, I can access this variable only in this scope. If I try to access this outside, then I won't be able to access it into the global scope.
Mhm.
And blocker scope is also a latent const also were introduced like in ES6. So they came with the blocker scope. Earlier we only had the where type of keyword, so that was a global scope.
Okay, correct. Also, could you please let me know what's the new features that has been introduced in the ECMA 6?
ECMA 6 mainly these latent const, and then we have the arrow function that we commonly use, and then data, so object restructuring, array restructuring, and one more for the async operations. We got the promises were introduced in ES6.
Mhm. So you said we have the arrow functions, right?
Yes.
Do you know what's the basic difference between arrow functions and normal functions?
Yes, main first basic difference is the structure, because
Mhm.
arrow function, the structure is more easy and readable, and then also arrow function doesn't have this there this variable, sorry, this keyword, while normal function has there this keyword. So that is the main basic difference. And if you try to access this in arrow function, always take this from its parent function, or you can say nearby function if it is wrapped under a normal function.
Okay, that's so I have created one simple program in the chat. Could you please check and let me know what's the output of this function?
Okay.
Considering the if condition is true.
B will be 25, and A, I think, will get the referencer because we will not be able to access it outside.
Okay, so if I run the program, what I will get?
A is not defined referencer.
Yeah, okay. So you're checked in the console, right?
Yes.
Okay. And if I move the console of B above the constraint, then what will the output?
If you remove the
If I move the console dot log B, I mean, sorry, if I move the console dot log A above the const A is equal to 23, then what will be the output?
so we'll get there because it won't be able to access this.
Alright, okay. So now what do you understand by the promise and async await in the JavaScript?
Okay, promises is like basic JavaScript object that represents the eventual completion in the of an object in the future that may not be fulfilled or rejected. So in prom like in so promises we use to implement the asynchronous operation in JavaScript, because JavaScript is a synchronous language, and async await is basically the syntactic sugar over the native promises that we use. So in the next my script update, we got this async await. So whenever we declare, we assign this async keyword in front of any function, so it automatically expects an await, so to complete the asynchronous operation. So we commonly use it in API calls.
Okay. So let's check in a scenario. Let's say I want to call 3 to 4 API calls simultaneously. Then how we can achieve that?
Simultaneously,
Yeah.
there's one, let's say, if they are dependent on the one to the another, then we can on the response of first, we can call the next API using the response of whichever condition or the key we are using. On the basis of that, we can make the different API calls on the basis of that, in step by step, if they are dependent. And if not, there is one promise dot all, uh, I think we can use.
Promise tutorial can use, right?
Right.
And let's say for one of the API, we get the error. So we will get the response or not.
No,
We have
so if you are using promise dot all, then not.
okay. And how we can achieve that error handling while using the async of it?
like we use mostly with try catch. So in catch, we get the error, then we can if we in React we can set the error into some state, or we can simply console log that error.
Mhm. And do you know what's the difference between like debouncing and throttling?
Yes. So like debouncing is it basically limits the uh,
And
like commonly we use debouncing in like for search functionalities, because let's say if input I type my name Neeraj, so on every key press my API gets called. So like to avoid that we use debouncing. So it simply limits the rate of the calling out to the function until there is some input. Like if for commonly we use like 200 milliseconds, 300 milliseconds to call the API. Once if there is an difference of 200 milliseconds in the next key press or next event, then only it will call the function and then make the API call.
and what about throttling?
Uh, like throttling, while throttling, like the common example in Juba is in debouncing, like it simply limits the rate. In throttling, it limits the rate of the functions call into a particular interval of time. Let's say common example is when we like resize the window to check the responsiveness. So in that, what it does, like in period of 200 milliseconds, it will only run once. So that otherwise it will be when we are scrolling, it will be go like in shades. So that is the common example of throttling.
Okay. So if I ask you to write the syntax of debouncing and throttling, so will you be able to do that?
Yes,
Now let's jump to some browser-related questions. So do you know what are web APIs?
the APIs. Yes.
Could you please explain it? Like what are the web APIs which we mainly use?
I think yes, set timeouts at the interval are part of that.
Mm-hmm. Any other?
Any other? Mm, mainly, like I know these.
Okay. So have you used local storage, session storage?
Yes, yes.
Yeah. So these are also the web APIs which you use.
Okay, okay.
And do you know anything about fetch?
Fetch is we used to when we get any API to get the response. So basically to fetch the response from that API URL, we use fetch. It will simply fetch the data, and then by if we are using fetch, then we need to convert it to the .json method. Then only we can use the data.
Okay. Yes. So fetch is also a web API which browser give us.
Okay.
And so you use API. I mean, to call the API, do you use fetch or do you use Axios?
I have worked with both. In Axios, we don't need to convert it into the JSON, so that it automatically does that.
Mhm. And in the difference between these two.
Yes, like fetch is the native method, while Axios is the library that we need to install it independently. So that it's a bit one more task. So these are the main differences.
So, or let's say fetch is already available, right, in the browser. So why there is need to install any other library to call the API?
Like as I mentioned, one is it automatically converts the JSON part. So one benefit in that, and others fetch also provide uh, to few methods so that are the advantage over the native fetch method.
And what's the basic difference between these like left local storage and session storage?
Okay, so low session storage will only be available until the session is, let's say I'm opening a Facebook tab. Simply once I close the tab, session will be like on. So it won't be available. But in local storage, we save the data, or let's say commonly they use a save token. So that will be in the local storage. We need to clear it like manually, or in the, let's say, low on logout feature. Sometimes we does that, and like both are all provides the memory of around like 4 to 5 MB.
Okay, okay. And now I will ask some question related to React. So you have plugged on the unit test cases also, right, in the React?
Yes, I actually have started learning. So
Good.
that's in the in the very beginning start.
Okay. So are you writing unit test cases in your current project?
No, but I like there was no need, so I started learning. So that is only that part.
Okay. Okay. So in React, could you please explain me like what are the hooks and why there is need to have hooks in React, and what are the basic different kinds of hook we have in React available?
Okay, so hooks are basically the functions that allow us to access the React state and other lifecycle methods in functional components. So in functional components, in class components, we have the like method mounting, unmount, uh, comment inbound. But in functional components, we have the like use vect and other hooks. So that's why we can't use hooks in like class components. And also like hooks, for example, the commonly used hooks are use state, use effect. So use state we use like words as a like a state variable to store data. So commonly we simply fetch the API, then save the data, and then map it, and then we demo it on the UI. And then there is another hook, use state, use effect for the like API calls. And then we have use memo, use callback, and mm, we have used context API also. So these are few hooks that we commonly use.
Mhm. Okay. And have you ever worked on the class component as well, or only on the function?
No, I've only started from the functional components.
Okay. So you must have created some custom hooks as well, right?
Yes.
Okay. So I've written one program in the chat. So could you please create a custom hook to manage a counter? Like it will have only three things. First one will the count, second one will the function, which will be the increment function.
To manage it.
Yeah. Third one will also be the function, which is for the decrement of the counter.
Okay. Let me show you my screen.
Sure. That's fine. Okay. And now could you please let me know like what is the context API and why do we use this?
Like we context API, like we it's simply like Redux. It also provide the central state for the whole application, in which and like in React data flows in unidirection. So in order to like pass data from parent to child, we can easily pass. But in if from child to parent, it is not like that much easy. And also to avoid prop drilling, so like if I have to pass data from like a component to B, then to, and C is actually using that data, so I'm unnecessarily passing the data from A to B unnecessarily. So in that case we use the context API. So use it, we simply create one context in which we also use its one of its method to provide, then that provide we pass to the our main application, like mainly in index.js, so that it whichever data we are having in this provider, we can pass it to the app, and by if we are passing this to the our app component, it will automatically pass to the whole application in the unit action flow.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And you have worked on the Redux as well, right?
Yes.
So why there is need to use Redux when the context API is already available?
Like Redux provide like more control, and like as Redux is basically predictable state container. So we have its few components, let's say main methods and pillar of this Redux, and Redux is mainly used for the large application, so that there will be uh, in we can manage the code like more to enhance its readability, and more in a what I say more in a manageable manner, so that everything is clear and a neat and clean code.
Mm. And what are the basic pillars or main pillars of Redux?
It's like action. So action is basically what happens into the application, and then we have use dispatch. What it does, it basically it use dispatch uh, uh, what happens into the application, it takes it to the reducer is basically a pure function that takes an and initial state and it's also decide how to like update the state, and in that we use dispatch, and we have the action for example, if I take the counter application, so in reducer we have the initializer, that is the value of the counter, and then we have this increment function. So it will take the initial state, and then uh, let's say user clicks on the UI button of let's say click on plus, then it will increase the counter to +1. So you by using the use dispatch, we send it to the reducer, and then reducer it will say like we have the increment function, so we will simply update the data into the state. So use dispatch, and by using the use selector, we get or read the data from the Redux store, and then main function is store. So what we have the reducer we have created, we in the configure store, we like connected to the by the name. So in reducer we have the initial state, and then the name of the reducer, and then the our say a function or these action increment decrement, and then we pass a store to the our application, like as props store simply.
Mhm. Okay. And have you worked on the Redux toolkit as well?
Yes.
And so what is the advantage of using this Redux toolkit of
Like
the normal Redux?
Redux toolkit is the like advanced manner, and basically what it does, it simplify the code. So now, so in what I have explained to you, it is from the Redux toolkit only. So we have the clarity. We are using the use selector to get the data, use dispatch to like send the data to the reducer, and then to update it to the store. And we also have with the extra reducers also to make the API calls in Redux toolkit.
Okay. And do you know what is virtual DOM in React,
Yes.
and why it helps us, I mean, how it helps us to improve the performance?
Yes, like virtual DOM is basically the copy of the real DOM. So React does, it simply creates the copy, and whenever any change is made, so it keeps basically the two copy. First is the current or the previous state, and when any changes happen into the like state or props, it simply creates a node of both the DOMs, and compare which part has been changed, and only update that part into the real DOM. That's why it is fast in comparison to any other application like for Angular or any other. That's why it is like most popular, and it has the vast you can say team or the community.
Right. Right. Okay. So let's say while iterating through the list in React, right, we need to pass keys, right?
Yes.
So if I don't pass the key, I will get the error in the console.
No, we get the warning into the console that you need to pass the key, and also if it is not recommended that we pass the index.
Mhm.
So if we have the any unique ID into the data, so we need to pass that into the key. So
So any idea why we need to pass the key?
because by using the key, React simply identifies that in which part has been modified, edit or delete to like
Oh,
update it fastly.
okay. And have you ever worked on the performance optimization as well for some React application?
Yes, like for performance, we use this like we can also use React.memo that React provided itself, and then we have the use memo and use callback. Like if in my game application, we had they were like whenever we make any changes come into the component, so it gets rendered. If we are using use memo, so what it does, it simply holds the value between the re-renders. So that function would be like if you are doing some kind of like heavy execution or some heavy task performance, so use memo simply hold the value, and that part won't be run again and again in between re-renders. So that's how we can like optimize the application. Or and REST Webpack does like many things.
Mhm. Okay. And accessibility is also something you have never talked about, right?
Accessibility.
Yeah.
No, I'm not getting the word. Like if you can explain it a little bit.
Like for the challenge people, we implement the feature, right?
Thanks,
So we
okay.
get done.
Yes, I am not word on.
Okay. So now I will ask some questions related to HTML and CSS. Then,
Okay,
so could you please let me know like what is a doc type declaration in HTML?
it's HTML document type.
Doc type declaration in HTML.
Yes, document type. Like whenever we direct in the HTML5 after HTML4, they've introduced if we have to mention that if it is a HTML document, we need to like in the at the top of the page, you need to define the document type so that browser get to know that it is a type of document. Okay, otherwise browser will not able to uh, consider or get to know that it is a HTML document. And then for like we have meta tags also that also impact the SEO performance if you are not using that.
And what are meta tags?
So meta tags they're basically the text which tells us about the type of the document type. So for example, we have description, so it simply tells the description like in the Google Meet it is coming in the top also. Oh, sorry, this is the title, and then we can also add the keywords in meta tags for the SEO purpose that this document includes the information that is related to these keywords.
Okay. So what are the attributes basically we pass in the meta tags?
These are title, oh sorry, keywords, description. These are
Okay. So you were saying that you are working on the gaming application, right?
yes,
So is it for mobile as well?
no, it was only for the desktop.
Okay. And have you worked on the making the design as responsive? Like
Yes, yes, yes.
made
Of course,
it
of course.
using the media queries.
Yes,
So could you please write a syntax for me for the media query?
yes. I can tell, or do I need to write?
Please write.
Okay.
Yeah. Let's say the minimum width is above 540 or something, and maximum width is between. I
Okay.
mean, the width is between 540 to 940. Then how we can achieve that? Your screen is already sharing.
Okay. So which please at the media. Let's say 768. So
Okay. Yeah, that's right. And yeah, you know what is like CSS box model?
yes, CSS box model is like it's the layout method. So if you go from inside out, so we have the content, then we have the padding, then we have the border, and then the margin.
Right. And what is Flexbox?
Flexbox is basically the layout method. So to align like say element or I'd say child to align elements vertically and horizontally without using the float. So we use the flex commonly. So it has the property justify content center or align item center start at the end. So we use this.
And what's the difference between these two, like justify content and line items?
So justify content, what it will does, it will align things horizontally, and while align item will align things vertically.